communicate well with creatures that can't speak, including infants. Though it was once suggested to me that infants are very drawn to people who wear eyeglasses, so maybe I'm being prideful. Maybe it's just my glasses. I'm also good, albeit not exceptional, with run-of-the-mill adults. This is because when I was in college, I followed around an obstetric nurse, April, who went to church with my father. An obstetric nurse lives in chronic extremeness. No matter how, quote, normal a delivery is, the day a human or any animal gives birth is an exceptional day. That is how April explained it to me. Every time she walked into a room with a new patient, she would say, "All right, honey, this is going to be a red-letter day." And then, whatever April would do, she would announce, like, "We're going to get this IV placed for you," or "We're going to get this Pitocin drip started. We're going to bring you some ice strips." "You might think I'm repetitive and insincere," April said on our first break, sharing cheddar goldfish with me, "but I speak the way I do for a reason." I took note of April's use of, quote, "we," and the habit of speaking each action. This had an effect on the laboring women not unlike that of the more fantastical fictional scenes of communicating peace or dominance to wolves in the wilderness. "Everyone gets negative online reviews," my supervisor, George, told me the day after the parrot person had written up a vicious review. "Yes, we know that," I said. "And customers expect miracles," which, George was saying, is understandable, I was adding. "But we have a protocol here, as you know. Once a team member reaches a dozen 3-star or below reviews within a 12-month period, it should be calculated with percentages, not raw numbers." "I can see good reason in that," George said, "absolutely. But that's not what we do. I'm letting you know, simply, that you are now one shy of this number." And I felt humiliated by the conversation. Also, I felt that there was an error in it, a religious error. An error in how goodness was being assessed and invited. What I said out loud was, "We're going to improve this situation." In my heart, I said, "He doesn't know me. I'm often unknown. I will help him to know me." I don't fear death. I assume the other side of the door is okay. In the lowest moments of my life, when I've thought that it might be useful to exit my situation more fundamentally, I assume everyone feels this way, at least briefly, at one time or another. It was not fear that...
"You're looking kinda lonely, girl. Would you like someone new to talk to?" "Oh yeah, alright. I'm feeling kinda lonely too, if you don't mind. Can I sit down here beside you?" "Oh yeah, alright. And if I seem to come on too strong, I hope that you will understand. I say these things 'cause I'd like to know if you're as lonely as I am. Would you mind sharing the night together? Whoa. Sharing the night together. Whoa. Oh yeah, alright. Would you like to dance with me and hold me? You know I wanna be holding you."
Taking action. Death is a mercy when it's time. That's how I was raised, and I stand by it, all the more so after years of bringing many a beloved creature across the greatest of divides. I feel like mentioning that I get consistently high marks for that service. I don't rush, I don't giggle, and I don't coerce people into sharing their emotions with me. I pay attention instead to the creature. Working again in the ER the evening following the discussion about my reviews, I met, one after the other, 2 more dogs, each belonging to a different household. Both had leaped over the bridge on 119, as Ohio had. It might appear that I'm telling you about how my livelihood was threatened by poor reviews, but I'm telling you instead something about dogs and their special gift, and maybe what we or I can learn from them. The first of the leaping dogs that night was a terrier mix. Terriers are deranged animals who could probably teach us a lot about how brains pointlessly track small movements and changes. These traits of theirs far exceed those needed to hunt small rustling prey. My father and I raised a terrier mix whom we mislabeled as selfish. All she wanted to do was play ball, until we saw her sleep by the door for 3 nights, while her dog's sister was away at the hospital. This terrier mix, Sushi, was 7 years old. He smelled like skunk. His human parent specified that he did not usually smell this way. But the human parent reported not seeing any skunk after having retrieved Sushi from his jump over the bridge. X-rays revealed no fractures. His human parent then asked if they could go. I deferred to Kelly, who was again working the desk and who was not judged by star ratings, since she is the person designated to communicate pricing. Not long after Sushi left, the other dog came in. Same leaping, same place. This dog had been on a walk, on a leash. He was a spectacular Irish wolfhound. He looked like the ghost of a horse. He looked like he had worked with headless people in a previous life and had not let those people feel ashamed about having no head. The wolfhound, whose name was Aggie, had tremendous grace and several contusions. He needed to be worked up for fractures and for the mystery of why a dog generally obedient had gone wild. The owner, an older woman with a long braid, told me that she had thought, Is this mad cow disease? Is this some kind of poison in the brain? Do I have mad cow disease? Is it a climate thing? As Aggie was waiting for x-rays, I worked triage. We had a sleepy cat suspected of obstruction, a cat with a chronic cough, a listless dog with diarrhea who needed IV fluids and a workup. A parrot was brought in with reports of seizures. I could hear this being explained to Kelly. A parrot. Fear tiptoed clumsily down all the corridors of me. Then, when I peeked into the waiting room, I saw it was a different parrot and a different parrot person. She suddenly gets stiff and falls off the bar, then lies on the floor of the cage, the parrot person said. She lets me pet her while she's there, and she stares at me like she's looking for help. Then, after a few minutes, she's well again. It's happened a few times now. I did not intuit that she was lying, the human. She looked stunned, like a cow in a traffic jam. I mean that in a nice way. Obviously, one doesn't side with the cars. Then she said, "Why was a dog with diarrhea seen in front of a parrot with seizures and confusion? Dogs have diarrhea all the time," she said. As I tried to answer her, she began to film me. So now I had exceeded my allotment of negative reviews. "It's not about understanding these people. It's about defanging these people," Kyle said to me. Kyle was young, maybe 25. He was a relatively new vet tech with us. He had a cheerful iguana tattoo on his neck and fingernails painted hot pink. He seemed fond of me, which I treasured. Avoiding making enemies has arguably prevented me from making friends, or that is something the father I keep in my mind has sometimes said. I said I didn't believe people could be defanged. Some people have fangs and like to bite other people. That's the way of the world. Kyle said he had a friend who was a herpetologist. He can walk through the woods and pick up all kinds of snakes that the rest of us would need to hide from. The snakes are still snakes, even venomous snakes, but he's not afraid, Kyle said, because he knows how to handle them. I'm also reasonably good at handling snakes, I said. Just take a deep breath, he said. When someone treats you like that, you just say to yourself, they don't know me. My mind returned to the jumping dogs, to that inky point I had made when the first dog, Ohio, was brought in. Why had he leaped out of his owner's truck? Why that day and not another day? 2 dogs cannot form a pattern, but 3 is not chaos. Kyle suspected that the dogs were depressed. Kelly said that she didn't think that dogs got depressed. That's just not what dogs were like. Sad dogs, sure, but no, not depressed. She said she had known of a cyclist who had died near that bridge, and perhaps the dogs were seeing his ghost. I said to myself, these 3 dogs, Ohio and Sushi and Aggie, are reasonable dogs. They are doing this for a reason. When I brought up the mystery to George, the supervisor, he said I needed to focus on what and who was in front of me, and that if I incurred one more online bash, and it seemed to me almost certainly what that second parrot person would do, I would be taking 2 weeks unpaid leave for sensitivity training and client management skills, and that even at the end of that training, he could not guarantee me my position back. And he also said that it would be best if I wore my hair in a bun, that it was too long to be worn in a ponytail. A job listing came up at a horse farm about 45 minutes outside town. It was a position for 2 days a week. I have not spent much time with horses. Although their eyesight is partly monocular, and their visual range is so much more than our own humble 180 degrees, they share with us the specificity of a world seen from around 5 feet above the ground. When walking, we aren't too different. I shared this thought, and it was not unwelcome, with a woman, recently widowed, who had placed the job posting. She had 16 horses and ran a riding school, and had a very cluttered home. Very clean stables, though. She said that it was difficult when she lost her husband, but what haunted her nights was a horse of hers, spooked by a storm, who got tangled in some old rope left on a fence post. What she needed was pretty routine care for her horses, care that had previously been done by her husband. Before I left, she went into her cluttered home and came out with a cookbook that contained favorite recipes from our nation's first ladies, from Martha Washington through to Jacqueline Kennedy. I drove away reminding myself of my skills, with animals and also with the human species. To the small puppet of my father that I keep in my mind, I said, so many well-meaning people, and small-minded people too, told me nothing would come of me, and yet here I am, replete with skills. How had this happened? And had I lost my way? Did I feel hopeless and like if I were fired from my job, all that structured my life in a good and purposeful and meaningful way would be lost? I didn't feel like that. But also I did feel like that. Acutely. I felt there was a very specific place for me in the world, a place that made sense for me, and that there were very few or maybe no other such places. I was less afraid of death than ever. And a weird feeling was growing inside me. A feeling that I had never really become a vet. A feeling that I had tricked everyone. I was no more...
In a little while from now, when I'm not feeling any less sour, I promised myself I'd treat myself with a visit to a nearby tower. Climbing to the top, throw myself off in an effort to make it clear to whoever what it's like when you're shattered, standing in a lurch at a church where people saying, my God, that's tough, she stood him up, no point in us remaining. We may as well go home as I did on my own, alone again, naturally. To think that only yesterday I was cheerful, bright, and gay, looking forward to, well, who wouldn't do the role I was about to play? But as if to knock me down, reality came around, and without so much as a mere touch, cut me into little pieces, leaving me to doubt. Talk about God in His mercy. Oh, if He really does exist, why did He desert me in my hour of need? I truly am indeed alone again, naturally. It seems to me that there are more hearts broken in the world than can be mended, left unattended. What do we do? What do I do? Looking back over the years, whatever else that appears, I remember I cried when my father died, never wishing to hide the tears. And at 65 years old, my mother, God rest her soul, couldn't understand why the only man she ever loved had been taken, leaving her to start with a heart so badly broken. Despite encouragement from me, no words were ever spoken. When she passed away, I cried and cried all day, alone again, naturally. Alone again, naturally.
In a little while from now, if I'm not feeling any less sour, I promise myself I'd treat myself and visit a nearby tower, and climbing to the top would throw myself off in an effort to make it clear to whoever what it's like when you shed her left standing in the lurch in a church with people praying. My God, that stuff she stood 'em up. No point in us remaining, we may as well go as I did on my own, alone again, naturally. Whoa, it seems lovely yesterday. Always cheerful, bright and gay. Looking forward to, well, wouldn't do the role I was about to play. Then reality came along, as if to make me wrong.
Come along with me, and the butterflies and bees. We can wander through the forest and do so as we please. Come along with me to a cliff under a tree, where we'll gaze upon the water as an everlasting dream. All of my collections, I share them all with you, And maybe by next summer, we won't have changed our tune. We'll still want to be in this town beside the sea, making up new numbers and living so merrily. All of my affections, I give them all to you. I'll be here for you always, and always be with you. Come along with me, and the butterflies and bees. We can wander through the forest and do so as we please, living so merrily.
Come along with me. Happy New Year to John McKinney. And I don't know the rest. I'm sorry, I don't know the rest.
Life and death and love and birth and peace and war on the planet Earth. Is there anything that's worth more than peace and love on the planet Earth? Just sing it with me. The words relate to the key. And I just wanted to say Happy New Year to you and Maggie. Life and death and love and birth and peace and war on the planet Earth. I wish you all a Happy New Year on the planet Earth.